What's up guys, Nathan here. Earlier today, GGG announced Delirium, the new league coming out for PC on March 13th and consoles a week later. As usual, this league comes along with a new gameplay mechanic, gems, and items. Additionally, the reward system for Delirium introduces new jewels that allow you to expand your skill tree with hundreds of new passive nodes, including 280 notables and several keystones. In this video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know, as well as offering a closer look at some of the teasers we've seen so far. Later on, I'll be going into some speculations and personal predictions about how this league is going to play out. But first, before we jump in, I want to give a quick shout out to GGG, ZickyD, and PC Invasion for some of the footage you're about to see. Go check them out if you want to learn more, because this video is going to be a bit more of an overview. First of all, let's go over the specific mechanics of Delirium as a league mechanic. In every area of the game, you'll find this rippling mirror type thing, and you simply walk into it to start your encounter. This will spawn monsters that become increasingly difficult and rewarding the longer you keep killing them. So this is kind of like Breach, Abyss, or even Legion is a good comparison. However, unlike those leagues, Delirium encounters are meant to layer on top of existing mechanics. This means that previously boring or not so difficult mechanics like Essences or Rogue Exiles will suddenly become far more dangerous and hopefully far more rewarding. This even extends onto map bosses, giving them the ability to warp into these weird, nightmarish entities that have their own set of abilities. I think you've probably seen a few of them in the background footage, but they're really crazy. You have these big fat dudes with axes that pop out of the Carcass map boss, or this sort of weird dude who fires a big bow and arrow or throws a spear at you coming out of the Brine King. In the endgame, you'll be able to use items called Orbs of Delirium on your map, which will give them a fixed amount of Delirium effect. Now, we don't know exactly what this means, but if I had to stipulate, here would be my guess. When you're doing a regular Delirium encounter, you walk through the mirror, and then as you're killing things, you'll get this Delirium effect that will gradually increase until you hit 100%, at which point you'll be getting maximum rewards and dealing with a maximum difficulty meter in terms of enemies you're dealing with. So that's how the normal mirror effects work, but if you get these Orbs of Delirium and put them on your map, I'm guessing it's going to give you a fixed amount of effect, so you can choose to take on a map with 100% Delirium effect the entire time without having to deal with a mirror or killing quickly or being super efficient about how your build, deals with mapping situations in general. You can also get a specific flavor of Delirium Orb. So for example, if you wanted to have a Delirium Orb that gives you 20% Delirium effect, as well as maybe Legion Splinters, that's going to exist according to the teasers we've seen. Delirium encounters, whether they're coming from the Orbs of Delirium on your maps or just the regular mirror encounters that you'll see pretty much in any area of the game, will drop something called Simulacrum Splinters. Now, these are just regular splinters like any other splinter mechanic in the game, which means you get 100 of them, they turn into a shard or a key, whatever you want to call it, you put it in your map device, and you can access a specific endgame encounter. Now, we actually know absolutely nothing about this endgame encounter so far, except for the interesting bit of flavor text that they included that it has to do with surviving the ultimate endgame challenge. Now, I may be reading into it a little bit too much, but when you use a word like survive, that kind of means something a little bit different to me, rather than just taking on a boss, fighting Uber Elder, killing Shaper. No, it has to do with surviving. So maybe I'm going off on the wrong tangent here, but for me, I have a feeling that whatever this endgame encounter is going to be, the simulacrum, it's going to be far different from whatever we're used to in terms of endgame boss encounters. Another major reward from Delirium encounters is going to be the new Cluster Jewel base type. This is essentially a borderline rework of the existing passive skill tree, because what you do is you socket these new Cluster Jewels into your tree. They have to be on the edge of your tree, by the way. This is important to know. You can't just socket them into the middle of your tree. They have to be on those sort of awkward edge slots that take 3 nodes to get to. But you socket these Cluster Jewels in, and they will expand your skill tree and give you access to brand new notables. We've been teased with a couple of the notables already, but there's absolutely some insane ones, like Devastator, for example, gives you a more or less discount explodey chest, or Blessed Rebirth, which gives you a brand new minion stat, essentially giving your minions invulnerability shortly after being summoned. I don't really know if this matters. I don't think there are any minion builds right now that would utilize this, but maybe after some balance passes, this might actually look like some sort of a interesting node for some players out there. There will also be unique cluster jewels that can give you a plethora of different things, but one of the most interesting ones is new keystones. They actually teased one of these new keystones called Hollow Palm Technique, and I think this is the one most people are talking about, but it gives you an insane amount of unarmed damage, huge amounts of flat physical damage per dexterity, as well as a huge more attack speed multiplier, but removes your ability to use gloves, weapons, or shields. So no Facebreaker. This is an entirely new sort of unarmed archetype that's being introduced. From the perspective of a player, I have to say this is easily the most exciting part of the announcement for me. Yeah, Delirium looks cool, but having access to very customizable, truly unique builds is something that I think Path of Exile has starting to lack a little bit over time. Like, yeah, we got our timeless jewels. Those are kind of cool, can allow some interesting stuff. But at the end of the day, people just say, hey, use this timeless jewel to get this keystone, or, use this lethal pride to get this amount of strength and minion damage. This is just entirely unique to a player. I think anybody with a good amount of experience with build creating is going to have an absolute field day. When they get a few of these to drop, they take a look at their passives, they see a couple of things that synergize, and then suddenly they have this ridiculous, I don't know, like melee unarmed ranger thing that wasn't an option before, but suddenly you dropped a bunch of jewels, crafted them a little bit, and they're good to go. From a content creator's perspective, however, I have to say I'm a little bit worried about this system because it's going to probably make it a lot harder for me to share specific builds with you guys. I'm a little bit worried I'm going to come up with some cool ideas, maybe get some specific jewels to drop, and I want to share them with you guys, but realistically, looking at what I have, it's just not going to be something that's super feasible unless people just have absolute metric fuck tons of, chaos or exalts to throw at crafting these things. Because at the end of the day, you have to remember these jewels, they're just jewels. They can be crafted any other way. So you're going to be maybe alt spamming, trying to hit a specific mod, or maybe you need to slam something to get a really important third mod on there. The opportunities are, I want to say endless. That's not necessarily true, but there's 280 new notables coming into the game. So as excited as I am about it, I am a little bit skeptical. This might make my life a little bit harder, but I can promise you from a player's perspective, this is beyond exciting, and I can't wait to see what insane stuff people come up with. Next up, I'd like to talk about a few of the new uniques, divination cards, and skills that have been shown off. I'm not going to go into all of them, but just a few of the ones that I found to be the most interesting. First of all, we have this cool new chest called Perfidy, which allows you to run 2 banners at once, as well as granting you a massive amount of increased duration on the adrenaline and fortify buffs that you get from War and Dread banner, respectively. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, don't quote me on it, but I feel like with just a little bit of increased duration investment, maybe a little support gem or something like that, you should be able to hit permanent adrenaline and fortify uptime if you're constantly hitting a boss. Again, don't quote me on it, but just the napkin math shows there's a good chance you're going to be able to at least achieve some very impressive uptime on these 2 ridiculously strong buffs. They also teased this divination card, which grants you 5 random fossils. We don't know where this thing's going to come from or how rare it's going to be, but I think fossils are one of the coolest things they put into this game lately. So anything that just puts a few more into the economy while also giving you a pretty interesting divination card. I mean, if you can get stuff like 5 bloodstained fossils, this is going to be a really fun card to just turn in all the time. It's just pretty much a good thing in my opinion. They also added a new jewel that gives you flat stats based on its placement on the tree relative to your starting point. Now it is teased with mana as well as dexterity, but we don't know if this is going to be able to grant other stats as well. Maybe flat life, maybe strength. We don't know for sure. We do know it's corrupted for one reason or another, but I have a feeling this jewel is going to have a lot of potential. And even if it's just mana and dex, 100% of the time, there are a lot of builds that can put stacking up mana and dex to great use. They also revealed 3 new skills. Now, all of these look amazing and unique. There is a 4th skill on the way. They haven't shown it to us yet, but let me just talk about the 3 that we know about. First of all, we have Blade Blast, which takes existing blade skills and apparently gives them the ability to sort of leave blades on the ground. We're talking Blade Vortex, Ethereal Knives, Blade Fall, and basically it makes it so that the blades sometimes will drop on the ground and then you can detonate these blades like explosions. Now, I'm not 100% sure how this is going to feel, but based on the footage we've seen, it kind of looks like a physical spell explosion version of Essence Drain Contagion. Now, if that sounds like an interesting description to you, then hey, we're on the same boat because this looks super fun and has a lot of potential. There's also Kinetic Bolt, which is a brand new wander attack, and I just want to say thank Chris fucking Wilson for this because we have been in need of one of these forever, and it looks so cool. I don't think they've actually even shown it to us with a GMP or Greater Volley, but if this skill is like even half as cool as I would think it would be when clearing maps, then this is definitely going to be a must try for me at some point this league. Lastly, they showed us Stormbind, which looks very similar to Baran's mana runes and kind of functions in a similar way. Basically, you channel and then it summons these mana runes, they expand out, and then apparently you scale some mana, you dump mana into them somehow, and it gives them an additional explosion. It does look a little bit mechanically clunky potentially, but if the runes spread fast enough or the mana scaling is as OP as mana scaling really normally can be, then there's a chance that this skill is going to be really strong. I'm 100% going to be starting with one of these brand new skills. I just don't know which one yet, and we haven't even seen the fourth one yet, so we'll see. I'm just really excited. I have to say, the designers really had a field day here. Instead of sticking with some boring archetype, they just sort of handed over to the designers and said, hey, make something cool. And they gave us 3 really cool things. So we'll see how it goes. Can't wait to try them out. So before I wrap this video up, I apologize it's getting a little bit longer than I intended, but I wanted to take a second to sort of speculate about a few things that I picked up just watching the video and sort of reading the teasers and just share that all with you guys. First of all, the lore. Let's just focus in for 2 seconds on this new boss. They have teased him in a very interesting way. First of all, if we take a look at the screenshot really quick here that they posted on the page for Delirium, he is for some reason standing in Lionel's watch facing this big fireplace. I actually don't have anything to glean off that. I kind of just realized that mid voiceover and wanted to mention it. Another thing that they've talked about with this god is he is the trickster god. If you read the flavor text on Perfidy, the chest, he is mentioned as the trickster god, and he has these massive horns and he sort of floats like this, cosmic deity. And if you know anything about European lore in general, you probably know about the Norse god Loki or even the pagan god Pan, and both of these characters are sort of mischievous tricksters in their own lore, and they also have these massive horns on their head, so I can't help but think about those. There's also the line on Perfidy, if you read the entire flavor text, it says that he turned the very day and night against each other, so what hope have you? Now, this is something that immediately made me think of Enigma from Dota 2. I doubt this is something they 100% intended, but he has a line that he says very often as he's sort of moving around the jungle, which is, if light cannot escape me, what hope have you?
If light cannot escape me, what hope have you?
I don't know if that's meant to be an Easter egg or maybe like a hint that this new character is very fundamental to the Path of Exile lore, like more so than we even realize right now, but I don't know, I just thought it was a fun tidbit and figured I'd share it here. Moving away from lore and more onto mechanics, I want to bring up the fact that they are reworking Incursion, but kind of just refusing to give us any details. Now, there are 2 major reasons why this could be. One, they don't actually know the details yet, and we're probably going to get an update in the form of a dev manifesto or a blog or something explaining that, or they're keeping it under wraps because they're buffing Alva to proportions people are not expecting. Now, if it ends up being the latter, then I'm going to claim and sort of predict right now that Alva is going to become the new most popular and overpowered master in terms of the rewards you can get, and people who figure this out and manage to farm her effectively for the first 24, 48 hours of the league are going to be in a very good spot. Who knows? Total prediction, totally out there, but hey, keep an eye out for a dev manifesto because we really have no idea what's happening to incursions. There's also the concern of Metamorph going core, and they did confirm that Metamorph was going to go core, but they were not very clear about how it was going to be implemented. They did say that it was going to be a bit more deterministic and lucrative in the ways that you interact with it, but they didn't specify. So maybe this means new sextant modifiers, or maybe even like a Zana map mod, but I have a feeling that Metamorph is going to be very strong to interact with, kind of like how Blight was ridiculously profitable this league for people who figured out that Blight maps were super strong and super common early on and sort of just abused it by AFK farming them with zombies. Lastly, I want to just express a little bit of skepticism and concern I have, and this might not be a big deal, it might be pretty unfounded, but I just want to say I'm a little bit worried about how scary this league looks. And I understand that's the theme or whatever, but just looking at the state of the game is right now, you need a huge amount of investment if you want to efficiently farm tier 16 legions with multi-beyonded maps, ivory watchstones, awakening level 8, all that stuff is pretty damn expensive if you want to interact with that content. And the way Delirium is implemented, instead of giving you sort of an additional mini game that you have to worry about in your maps, it's sort of acting as a multiplier on top of all of these existing mechanics, which is cool and, objectively, I think kind of a good thing. I prefer it being implemented like this rather than just a mini game you need to learn to interact with every map, but it's going to make these maps so unbelievably juicy. I'm worried that the power of things like Headhunter and Inspired Learning is just going to start bubbling a little bit too high to the top. We already saw Headhunter push the 25,000 chaos mark back in Legion League, and that was just because Timeless Monoliths were the domain of Timeless Conflict was so profitable to farm. At this point, I'm a little bit worried that regular mapping is going to become so important for you to run that Headhunter to officially interact with these mechanics and sort of just not die and hemorrhage experience. then I'm a little bit worried. I don't really like the idea of slapping a headhunter on build. I mean, I like the idea that it's a chase unique and it's powerful and pretty much any build can utilize it in an effective way, but I don't like it turning into maybe potentially a box that you need to check. I know some high-end players are probably thinking right now, hey, headhunter is already a box I need to check to play my builds, but I don't like to play that way, and I would prefer it if I didn't have to sort of shift my sort of outlook on the game to the point where, hey, headhunter, you got to use this item right now if you want to start interacting with tier 16 maps efficiently. These concerns could be totally unfounded. I could be totally wrong, but I just want to say, what I'm thinking right now, and we'll see how the league plays out. Reserving all judgment until then, but that is one potential problem that I see arising depending on how things end up feeling in the upper, 1% of gameplay situations. That's going to be it for me today. Sorry this video went a little bit long, guys. I'm just super excited, and there were a couple of speculative things I wanted to go over. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Nathan, and I'll catch you next time.
Thank you!
Huge thank you to my Patreon supporters: Real Human, Zikarak, Squally, Zoljan, Coda, Julia, Allen, Kepler, Sparky, Kata, Putzak, Heiser 801, Kyle, Logan, Ice Dude, Ginseng, Anonymous, Orangina, Marius, and Alex. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting me in between the leagues. Really makes a difference for me. If anyone else is interested in joining these fine folks over on my Patreon, you can check me out at patreon.com/NeitherBrotherBob. We have all kinds of cool benefits like, well, I guess there's like literally just being able to see my planning documents. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's kind of cool if you like reading Google Docs and seeing some weird anecdotes and reading blog posts from time to time. But I mean, hey, that's what you get. And I say your name, that's pretty cool too. But if you're not interested in Patreon, you want to just support me another way, you can drop a Twitch Prime on me over at twitch.tv/NathanBrotherBob. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Or if you just want to, hang out, get to know me, get to know my community, you can join the Discord there in the bottom right-hand corner. No monetary investment required. Just be nice. Don't be mean. Mean people equals not fun Discord. So yeah, don't do that. Thanks for watching. Bye.